Can you hear? Can you see? Yes? Shall we begin? Let me know if people are on. I see names. Is it clear? Should I play with the audio a little bit? Loud enough? I feel like there's confusion about the timing. All of these, good. I feel like there's changing of the clocks, and then last week I started an hour early, and now I'm starting the regular time because right, everyone, the state's caught up with the clock change, correct? So maybe people will drift in as they drift in. Okay, good, Baruch Hashem. So let's get started because we have a lot to do. I hope so far we're already 4 classes in. So I hope that it's so far being helpful with everybody's tefillah and their association with their siddur, their love for their siddur, and I hope that it's only going to help us to continue to increase our love and attachment to the beautiful words of the tefillah. I told you Rabbi Nachman used to love the siddurim of all types. He loved so much that he used to collect all kinds of extra Kabbalistic sfarim, and also he loved. I said anybody who wants the list of priority in tefillah should write to me and I'll put it up. Although the truth is I can put it up right here, but it's going to be, I don't know if it helps you. I don't think you have the ability to, yeah, Katie, you did ask for it because I sent out a few of them. I'm sorry if I somehow missed it. I could add it here, I just don't know if you have the ability to download it from here. So if I forgot, I will try to send it. Some people had trouble a little bit with using the chart. It's very simple. It just sort of goes in increasing order or decreasing order of time availability. And then it just gives just a very straightforward chart of what drops out if you have less time. But don't go according to the time allotment because, it's kind of like an average time allotment for doing this many tefillot if you're super comfortable with the siddur, and actually if you're davening really fast. So I found that the time estimates can be a little bit, I found them a little bit fast, unless I'm in like some kind of a super crazy hurry, but still not ideal. Okay, so the picture, the image that I have here, which we sort of been working along with, is the table of contents, first page of the table of contents of Rabbi Chiel Bar Leib's siddur Yedid Nefesh, which is actually a siddur from the Kubarim, but we've been going according to the framework that he sets up here, which is how I usually like to talk about the tefillah of Shacharit, which Rabbi Nachman speaks about. It's not like it's only from the Kubarim. I mean, it's something that's known, but unless you have someone to sort of walk you through it and explain it, you may not have the framework of understanding the tefillah as 4 plus almost 5 worlds that you're moving through. And we see this most clearly in Shacharit. That's the way it's built. Shacharit is the main tefillah of the day, obviously. Each of them, Shacharit, Minchah, and Maariv, have very different, we're going to talk about Minchah and Maariv also, but their roles are very different in terms of tikkunei tefillah, like what's getting accomplished spiritually. They have very different jobs. So the main work of tefillah, and that's why the tefillah of Shacharit is so much longer, because that's the beginning of the day, that's how we set the pace for the day, and that's how we're kind of beginning the new world of the day. So, let's see. So anyway, I had been telling a story. Rabbi Nachman, it's well known about him that he also used to love saying tefillot, like he would collect up different small siddurim that were written also for women with tchinas in them in Yiddish, about like all kinds of things, because all these tchinas have all kinds of interesting tefillas in them, like, I don't know, your child's first tooth, or special tefillas that you say when it's Shabbos Mevorchin, right? Erev Shabbos Mevorchin, when you light candles. So we have like a whole series of extra special, beautiful prayers in Yiddish that were customary for women to say, and some women still say them, for when you light candles, when you have a new month coming, like this past Shabbos was Shabbos Mevorchin. And so, so he used to say all of them, even though traditionally they're said by women. He felt like any tefillah that was written in a book, he really wanted to say it. So I always love that image of him, picking up, and also the Shacharit, which is like has all kinds of Kabbalistic extra tefillot. Whatever he could get his hands on, he had a great love for the written tefillot of whatever form they take. So in piyutim and, liturgical poems and all of it, he had a great love for the tefillah expression of the Jewish people in whatever form it took, whether it was in Hebrew or in Yiddish. And so it's an image of the Rebbe that I always really love. This idea that he just could never get enough of the tefillot, that he's even saying, like, I have an old Tchina book that's like a siddur for women who don't understand the siddur. So there are alternate tefillot in Yiddish, not just translations, but they're kind of alternates, a little compressed, a little more detailed in certain places of the order of tefillah Shacharit, with like alternatives for Modeh Ani and for Reshis Chachma, and like alternatives for everything. Some things simplified, some things expanded upon. And I just love the idea of him saying these tefillot just because they're available. Okay, now, so we spoke last week about the world of Asiya, about the organization of Tefillat Shacharit in kind of like a four-world, increasing entry into the palace at every stage and every place along the way. You have different work to do. It's a different olam. And so we spoke about all the preparatory stuff. That was really the focus of our learning last week, about how the morning brachot, from the time we get up in the morning until we get to the point just before the Kaddish, between the end of the first section of Tefillah and Psukei de Zimra. So we have, that's that point here, because at each point we have here a Kaddish. The only place we don't have a Kaddish is between, as I mentioned last week, we don't have a Kaddish between the world of Bria and the world of Atzilut, in other words, between Shema and Shmona Esrei, because we have a special mitzvah. It's called Smichat Geula L'Tefillah, that you're not allowed to interrupt, and you have to mention redemption just prior. Between Shema and Shmona Esrei, you have to be focused on redemption and drawing up and awakening, arousing Hashem's mercy for redemption, because once we get to Shmona Esrei, we're unfolding the process of redemption. And so there we don't have a Kaddish in between, but at other stages, both before and after, we do have more Kaddishim. Now, so Kaddish itself, we'll see if we'll get in one of the sources. I might have brought something about the Kaddish so you can see inside from Reb Nosson what the Kaddish is about. But at every stage, there's like a kind of like, if we speak about the model, there's the usual mashal about going into the palace and you have a private audience. And so first you have to make sure you have all of your elements of everything that you need to bring with you, and you have to be in proper order, and you have to be settled in yourself to be able to just make it to the palace. And then you get to the gates, and here's your Kaddish, and it's like this fanfare of trumpets and an awakening of desire and yearning to go into the next stage. That's called Kaddish. That's the Kaddish. And then you're ready to go in to the palace, and as you go into the palace, so you sort of have to cross over, like you're going to cross the moat, you're going to go through the gates, and this is the place of Psukei de Zimra. Now, Psukei de Zimra means literally chapters of song, but Zimra, as we know from the Arizal's explanation of Psukei de Zimra, and which we also find expressed in his Azamer B'Shvachim, in his Zemer for Friday night, which actually is not the only Zemer, because we have also Yom Zel Yisrael, but one of the songs for Friday night, the Arizal's more Kabbalistic Zemer for Friday night, is called Azamer B'Shvachim. And Azamer B'Shvachim means I will cut away, or I will prune away with Shvachim, with songs of praise. And the idea of Azamer B'Shvachim, meaning you can read it as I will sing these songs of praises, but Zmira in Hebrew means to prune, like to take a set of hedge clippers and cut away the thorns and the overgrowth in order to pass through a pathway or get into the garden or whatever you want to call it. So that act of pruning is accomplished best through song and poetry. Now, when we talk about spiritual obstacles to prayer, so we're not usually used to singing Psukei de Zimra as meaning the ordering of it as meant to be something that not only does something for the world as a whole, but also does something for us. And we need to be in a proper state for prayer. We need to cut away our obstacles, so to speak, cross the moat, get past the guards. So if we understand the roots of Psukei de Zimra, it follows the model that the Rambam tells us is the model of prayer. You start off with praise, then you ask what you need to ask for, and you end with expressing gratitude. When we look at the place of praise, so this section of the tefillah, which is Psukei de Zimra, and then Shema, so these are places of shebach, of expressing a great deal of praise for Hashem. And then after that, we come to Shmoneh Esrei, which is when you're making your requests. After that, we have expressions of gratitude. That comes afterwards. I'm not getting to that right now. So if we go back to Psukei de Zimra, so let's look at our main elements, right? We have, or you can open your siddur, right? If you open your siddur, let me take a little siddur from here. 1 sec. So here's my siddur I take with me in my pocketbook, in a little plastic bag, in case I need to go to the bathroom, and then it's inside my pocketbook and also inside of the bag. Siddur. Take it out, Chloe. Okay, so this is a weekday siddur. Right now, if we're looking at Psukei de Zimra, I'm going to go according to the Nusach Sfard, because that is the Nusach that I pray. I wasn't raised praying Sfard, but I married. When I married my husband, he had changed his Nusach from Ashkenaz to Sfard because he was already a Breslov Chassid, and so I changed my Nusach along with him. So as we're here's our Kaddish. Okay, here's our Kaddish prior to starting Psukei de Zimra, and then we begin. Now in Sfard we begin with Hodu, and we have a whole bunch of segments that we say. We have different things we say before we say Baruch She'amar. Now so that's why we have Hodu here, and then Baruch She'amar. If you pray Ashkenaz, so you're going to start with Baruch She'amar, and also this has a distinction also on Shabbos morning. We have some differences about how much is said before you say Baruch She'amar. Now why should it make a difference? Well, just to be clear, just halachically, once you say Baruch She'amar, you're not allowed to pause in the middle or speak in the middle between Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach. That's it. You can't speak. If for some reason you have to interrupt before you've said the opening blessing of Baruch She'amar, it's still possible to interrupt if necessary. It's not ideal either, but if necessary. But once we have here, not for conversation, for sure not. And for prayer responses, I'm not going to go into all of the halachot, but this is the kind of thing that's very important to know well. When you can answer, at what point you do answer Amen, at what point you do answer even, you answer to Kaddish, at what point you don't answer or can't answer anymore as you go further into the tefillah. But we can understand that, and I highly recommend everybody review these halachot. I'm not going to go through it right now. Whatever siddur you use should have some notation or some, kind of footnote or something at the bottom or in the back, giving you a reminder of what you can interrupt for, what you can't. But in terms of our study, the thing we have to realize is that the issue of interruptions plays out like here, between here and Baruch She'amar. Can you interrupt if you need to? Is there any law? Is there any reason why you can't interrupt here? Obviously, if in the middle of a blessing, you don't interrupt. But is there a problem interrupting between blessings, or even answering for divrei chol? If somebody needs something from you, you have to respond, or if it's an emergency, someone calls, you have to answer the phone, whatever it might be. You don't have restrictions on that because, again, you're in the preliminary phase. As you move forward through the order of the tefillot in the morning, we find that it's not only that it's not only a refinement thing, it's a halacha. We have more and more restriction about what you can interrupt for until you get to the point where you're actually not allowed to interrupt at all. So your responses, permitted responses, it becomes more and more stringent as we move forward because you are getting closer and closer to your audience with the king. And when that happens, you have to stay totally focused. And you're not allowed to respond to anything tzaddi, anything outside, even if it's a prayer response. The halachot become more and more stringent as to what you can respond to, what you don't respond to, until we're finally at the point when you get to Shmoneh Esrei, you don't respond to anything if you're in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei, even if they're in the middle of saying Kedusha. Let's say you have you're praying a long Shmoneh Esrei and you're not finished, and the rest of the tzibur is they're already doing Chazarat Hashatz. They're already in the Chazan's repetition of Shmoneh Esrei, and so there are halachot about do you just stop? At what point can you respond? Can't you respond? In any case, at a certain point, you can't respond at all, and that's because once you're in your audience with the king, you're really not interrupting for any reason, unless it's going to be something that if you don't take care of it, it is interrupting your ability to have this audience, and that's why there are halachot about if you need the bathroom suddenly, about stepping out of Shmoneh Esrei, going to the bathroom. Or there can be other emergency situations where if you don't take care of it, it's more of an interruption to ignore it than it is to take care of it. And so you are permitted to stop, but you're not actually really stopping. You're just, like we say, stepping away and coming back. Let's go back to Psukei de Zimra. So from the point of Baruch She'amar, you no longer... conversation is finished, and prayer responses are specific, and there are halachot about at what point it's ideal to respond, and finishing out a pasuk or something like that before you respond is preferable, etc. Now, so as we go forward, let's think about what's here. The layout after Baruch She'amar, and I'm going according to Nusach Sfarad, right, is that we have Baruch She'amar, then Yehi Chavod, right, then Ashrei. And then after that, we have what are called the Halalukas. The Halalukas are 6 chapters that are considered to be like the essence of the high praise of Tehillim, and that's why they've been incorporated into Psukei de Zimra, because the power of their praise is so strong that they have been included. And the last of them, Halaluka, Halaluki al-B'Kodsho v'chulei, which is the last chapter of Tehillim altogether, it's the 150th chapter. That one is considered to be the most important of all of them. After that, right, we start another series of tefillot. I'm just going through what's here. We have Vayivarech David, and then that goes into the Song of the Sea, right? Vayivarech David is the song that is the prayer that David HaMelech said at the time of bringing the Aron to Yerushalayim, and so it's a very powerful prayer. And after that, it's time for the splitting of the sea. And everyone has to say that with a lot of joy. It says in the Talmud that anyone who says it with joy, all of his sins are forgiven. It's a very powerful moment. Rabbi Nachman kind of plays on this idea when he says that when a person prays properly, he guarantees his livelihood and his zivug. And in the lesson he explains because kashin mizonotav shel adam and zivugav shel adam kekriyat yam suf, that a person finding their livelihood and finding their life partner is as hard as splitting the sea. And in Likutey Moharan, Rabbi Nachman explains that the sea was split into 12 different shvilim, into 12 different, like it says in the Talmud, 12 different pathways for each of the tribes, and that's because there are 12 essential pathways of prayer relating to Hashem, which is called nusach. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean the words, it has to do with how we pray, and it can actually mean, in the old days it might have meant, and it probably did mean having a particular different set of words that were customary for different tribes based on their life conditions, but he speaks about it in that lesson as like knowing really how to express yourself in tefillah that's really unique to you and your needs. And he says when a person manages to go through the yam, manages to find his way through the yam in the right way that's in accordance with the root of his soul, so then the zivug and the parnasah, they come together for him because he knows his path through the sea. Now it ends off after we finish Az Yashir. So we close Psukei de Zimra with Yishtabach, right? And after that, again, another Kaddish. Now, so that's in a nutshell. That's what we have. And if we go back to what the Arizal has told us about Yeah, it's in. I have to remember what lesson it's in because I didn't bring it along with. There's just so much to look at that there's a limit as to how much I was going to copy and put up. But it's actually in the same lesson in Tet, I think, which talks about being honest in tefillah. So that's the lesson where Rabbi Nachman goes through it in Sohar, which is a very important lesson for understanding tefillah. And BRI put out an English version, by the way, a little booklet many years ago called Sohar. So if you can get a copy of it, if you want to be able to see it in translation with some Likutey Moharan on it, it's in there. Now, so we have our Psukei de Zimra, which, as I learned from the Arizal, is like the way that you sort of, you have to break through those obstacles. Now, when we think about, just went through in a nutshell quickly what the Psukei de Zimra are, but they are literally songs of praise which is aroused through reflection over all of the wonder of creation and God's providence over the Jewish people. So it's like the big wide lens, which is, that's like the Hallelujahs, right? That gives us the big wide lens from the Tehillim on the glory of Hashem's creation and his involvement in the world as a whole. And then in addition, and by the way, the difference between this and Shabbos is just Shabbos, there's more. But even on the weekday, it's pretty broad. And then we have all of the praise that we want to offer. You're asking me about what I sent you, Gila Rachel. I think I sent you the priority sheet. It's a straightforward halachic answer to what. No, it's okay. It's like it's very straightforward. What you add when you have more time. Some people would say, "Oh, but I want to add what I feel like I should add." You can ask a Rav about it, but there are some, basic rules as to what's necessary for women, especially when you have more time or less time. Let's go on, because it's not so much about me personally. Because if I want to say Tehillim, I can always say Tehillim later. Anybody who wants the list, I'm not going to remember. You have to send me an email, and I'll do my best to remember to send it out. Katie, I'm really sorry that I didn't send it to you. I thought I had. Please forgive me. Let's see. So let's go back. So Psukei de Zimra. So I'm like, what obstacles am I like slicing away, and how am I accomplishing it? By focusing on the greatness of Hashem, his providence, what he does for the world as a whole, and what he's doing for us as a people, or has done for us as a people. What's that really supposed to do? So we say, well, the area of Yetzirah, of the second world, is not about like getting my physical act together, which is a lot of asiyah. That's the stuff that came before in the area of brachot. But I'm sorry I missed it, Katie. Anyway, but later, it's not about getting my physical stuff together and showing up at the palace dressed properly, in a proper state of mind, with all of the accoutrements and things I would like to bring along with me. It's more than that. I have also internal obstacles of focus and kind of preparing my heart to feel and to be aroused and inspired in the state of tefillah. Meaning, I don't want to pray cold. And so, Psukei de Zimra, in addition to being proper to offer praise to Hashem, based on my human experience and also my Jewish experience, which is really what's in Psukei de Zimra. There's more than that. I also have all of my internal obstacles because I'm like a lump, I'm barely breathing. It's the morning. I have to wake myself up. So the Psukei de Zimra are a gift that have been given to me so that my heart can start to awaken, to feel gratitude, to feel close to Hashem. I need the time to be able to reflect on the beauty of the creation that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has laid before me to reflect upon, and also on the history of the Jewish people and his involvement in our story. So when I allow myself that time, that's why it's in the siddur, it's a way of slicing away, pruning away. Like, imagine this kind of like you're holding this machete and you're just like hacking your way through the path in order to clear the way for you so you can move forward into a closer and ever increasing closer communication with Hashem and more focused. And for that you need the Psukei de Zimra. They're a necessary stage. You can't just jump into Shema. You can't just jump into Shemona Esrei. Now, halachically, can you just jump into Shema and Shemona Esrei? And I think we spoke about this in the first class. Yes, if you have to, you can. but you don't feel right when you do that, and you feel like you've skipped stages and something is missing, and there's a reason, because there's a kind of natural progression and building of attachment and attention, that's what the siddur is designed to help move us through. So it's not so much that it's not so much that it's from the place of obligation, although it is, but also of understanding. The sages provided me with this order. This siddur is an order. And the discipline of the order is because it operates according to the states of my nefesh. These are the kinds of things that I need as a human being to be able to enter into the state of tefillah, meaning my audience with the king. I want to get there in the best possible state. Now, I brought along, so now that I've explained, I hope I've explained like just the general framework of this second stage or second, and Yetzirah is the place, it's like the place of the heart and the emotions and the arousal of a loving attachment, love, also love of God, fear of God. And we're going to see that it's distinctly different from the love and fear of God that is aroused in the next stage of the blessings of Shema. That's a different story, but we'll just say in terms of human, visceral emotion, that I look at the world, and then I look at my life, and I look at my history, and I feel aroused to a state of love and fear of God, fear in the sense of awareness of His presence and connection to me. So that's what my Psukei Dezimra are meant to awaken in me, in order for me to be able to pray. Again, the whole goal is to get me to Shmoneh Esrei in a proper state. So it's playing its role. Now, let's see what I have here. Next. These are two very short lessons. Two very short lessons from, I'm just wondering if we should do these first or second. Well, it doesn't matter if something is out of order, so I hope you'll forgive me. Because here I have two very short lessons that come one after the other in Likutey Moharan. That's lesson 231 and 232. Just these two little sections here. And then, ooh, sorry about that. There must be some way for me to remove that. Whoops. Oh well, sorry about that. Okay, didn't mean to deface the page. So let's just do them. We'll go through them, and then we're going to skip over to another set of sources that I have brought, which also touch upon themes and issues in Psukei Dezimra. B'sha'a she'omrim utzva hashamayim lecha mishtachavim. Okay, where does that happen? Yes? Utzva hashamayim lecha mishtachavim. Here, because here what I've brought together, we have a few different sources which are pulled out from different places in Psukei Dezimra that Rabbi Nachman just touches upon. Sometimes he does, sometimes Rabbi Nassan, but most of these are going to be from This is from Vayivarech David. Now, Vayivarech David as a whole, Leah, what did you ask? Utzva hashamayim lecha mishtachavim. And the legions of heaven, they bow down to you. So he's referring to a certain point in Vayivarech David. I always have trouble about this. Okay, so here's because it's reversed. Vayivarech David. Yes, I can't see, but it's down here. Okay, so it's towards the end. It's towards the end. Now, it's the transition point between the end of Vayivarech David, which then goes into Vichot, which is about the gift of Eretz Yisrael, and then afterwards we start Az Yashir, the song at the sea. So that's like the breakdown. It's the end of Vayivarech David before it goes into Shacharit Mohabrit. Now, so Rabbi Nachman says, when you get to the point of saying Utzva hashamayim lecha mishtachavim, so he's giving us a kavanah. Okay, there's a few different points where Rabbi Nachman will just pick out a random pasuk. not random, but he'll pick out a pasuk or a phrase and he'll say, this is what you should be thinking of when you say this phrase. So I wanted to share a whole bunch of these with you because I have found that in my tefillah, I really loved every time I came across some kind of a pointer of kavanah in tefillah from Rabbi Nachman. I always found that it gave me a lot of chayut, helped my prayers a lot. So here's one of them. When you get to that point in Vayivarech David, where you say, and the legions of the heavens, they bow down to you. You should have in mind every single thing that you need. All forms of remedies, meaning healing. When we talk about the tzva shamayim, the legions of heavens, he means the whole ma'arechet, the whole system of angels and heavenly spheres and heavenly influence and astrological influence and physical influence. It's like this kind of chaining down that becomes ever more mitgashem. It becomes ever more physical until it finally manifests in whether when you take a medication, whether it works or doesn't work. And that's actually something that Rabbi Nachman speaks about in Tinyana. You see, if you look at the bottom there, I'm pointing with my finger, but of course you can't see my finger, so hold on a second. If you see here, Ayin Inyan Ze Barichut Belukotei Tinyana Siman Aleph, that's in what we call the lesson Tiku Emunah. In the first lesson of the second section of Likutey Moharan, Rabbi Nachman speaks about this at length, how faith is the thing that is like the engine that moves all of the interlocking system of the spheres and all of the complex mechanics of heavenly influence until it finally comes down into this world. And so he says faith is the engine that like gets everything moving. So whether when you take your vitamins, whether they actually make you feel better or do anything for you, it really has to do with the fact that there's no esev ve'esev, there's not a single blade of grass that's growing that doesn't have a malach, it doesn't have an angel above it that strikes it and says it grow. That means to say spiritual influence is the source of all blessing in physical reality. And so therefore the place where you draw blessing down into the physicality of the things that we need in the world is via prayer. So he says, when you say Utzva Shamayim Lecha Mishtachavim, Hashem, everything is mitbatel to you. All the legions of the heavens, they're all completely submit to you. So he says you have to have kavanah at that point that everything, the whole system of the spiraling down and chaining down of heavenly influence down here into this world is coming via the tzva shamayim, via the legions of heavens. And all medications and remedies receive their power. They are empowered to actually work on the physical plane from their roots on high. That's where they receive their force and their ability to heal from. When a person needs healing, so what they really need is that these heavenly forces, like this like, you know, in its original form, it's this undifferentiated kind of spiritual koach that has to come down to the world, that provides power and force to function and work the way it should into a particular blade of grass. He means some herb, or some other herb, and when you compound medications that come from all of, they synthesize them from all of these different natural sources. They're really, what's really being compounded is a spiritual influence that's coming down through a very particular pathway. Okay, when you come to points in the prayer, especially like this, where we acknowledge that all heavenly influence is completely submitted, so it's completely at the mercy of and in the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will. That's the place where you have the kavanah that the things that you need to make use of in this world, that they should work the way they're supposed to. When I call out and say, all of the heavenly hosts, they are bowing down to you, that's when they are bowing down to you. And so it's at that moment of submission of the whole Ma'arechet Shemayim, of this whole heavenly, machinery. Like, It's at that moment in time that I call it out and say they're all subservient to you. That's when they are being subservient to you and submit to you. And so it's a very powerful moment there. And therefore, at that moment, it's like that's when they're getting their kaviyachol, their instruction, their force directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to come and serve as channels through which the divine influence enters the world. And actually, now he's saying something which he repeats later. He said, forget about taking medications. If Hashem wants it, you can have all of the refuah that you need through water and through bread. So let it come through the food. Why does it have to be through the medicine? It can come through any channel. The point is where it's originating from, not where it's landing. And so it should just be through bread, through water, through the foods that you eat. And then you could be healed without having to do further hishtadlut by taking medications. Amen. So may it be. So, right, here's a short lesson, short, but a big idea that hopefully we'll be able to take with us into our Psukei de Zimra. Now, another one. This one, when I first came across it, Ad Hayom Hazeh, every time I pray, I remember it. It didn't leave me. B'shah shomer halalu et Hashem min hashamayim, halalu kol malachav, halalu kol tzava'av. Okay, so this is in the Halalukas. If you're skipping the Halalukas, if you're not used to saying them, it's good. So, if you're skipping the Halalukas, so then you don't get to say it. But if you say it, it's pretty amazing. So, halalu et Hashem min hashamayim. Now, that's in your Halalukas, which come just before. And it is in the fourth. Yeah, it's in the fourth. So halalu et Hashem min hashamayim, halalu b'mromim, halalu kol malachav, halalu kol tzava'av, halalu shemesh v'yareach, halalu kol kochlei or. So if you're familiar, which number lesson in Likutey Moharan? This is 231 and 232. These lessons. I think that Leah is answering about Tehillim. The Tehillim in the Halalukas, so that is 148, right? So this is a powerful idea, which actually, the first time I saw it, I don't know if I saw it here or if I saw it in the writings of the Eish Kodesh, but it doesn't matter because the Eish Kodesh, when he writes it, I think it was in Chovat Talmidim, that's the Piasatz and Rebbe, he was taking it straight from Likutey Moharan in any case. So this is the idea where it originates, and it's so powerful. Halalu et Hashem min hashamayim, halaluhu kol malachav, halalu kol tzava'av. Okay, so if you go through that chapter 148, what you're going to see is this just unfolding from top to bottom, so to speak. Like through all of creation. But look at the language. It's halaluhu, halalu et Hashem. I, the human being, am calling out to all of creation in a very, very systematic way, from highest to lowest. I'm summoning all of creation to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the format of the entire parak. So look what Rabbi Nachman makes of this, right? He says, you go through the whole parak, when you say it, Azai ha'adam korei lekulam. I'm calling out to all of the universe, Sheyahalalu et Hashem, that they should praise Hashem. It's a very beautiful way to arouse yourself in order to pray properly. It awakens a lot of emotion. As soon as you realize that that's what you're doing, it's like you can imagine yourself standing on a mountaintop, right? Imagine yourself standing on the top, I don't know, on what's the highest mountain? I don't know. You're standing at the top of Kilimanjaro, you're standing at the top of Mount McKinley, you're standing at the top of wherever, and you're looking out onto the vast expanses of the world, right? And you're calling out, hallelujah, hallelujah, and what a power it gives to the prayer when you realize that as a human being, you summon the praise of all that exists via your praise and your reflection upon it. So he says this is something that is powerful in the sense because it's ma'orer kavanat halev. It awakens us to the power of the tefillot that we're saying b'shat ma'aseh. So when I first saw that, I was just completely. I don't know if people are affected by it the same way that I am, and maybe I'm not conveying it well, but it's just like it's more than 20 years since 25 years since I first came across this, and it's just with me all the time. As soon as you say these words, if you're aware of what you're saying, that it's you calling out to the world and awakening the world to praise Hashem, then it's a very big boost to the tefillah. Okay, let's go on. We have more beautiful ideas to encounter. Yeah. Let's see. Now here is not a lesson from Likutey Tefillot, not from Likutey Moharan or Likutey Lachot. It's actually from the set that I sometimes love to refer to, the set called Siach Sarfei Kodesh. I've mentioned it sometimes, which is kind of an oral history of Breslov. And this is actually a volume that brings a whole bunch of anecdotes, a lot of anecdotes about students of Reb Nosson. Now, I went looking, I went digging around for things related to Psukei D'Zimra to share with you. And I thought, here's something that it's not from the Rebbe and it's not from Reb Nosson, but you see how when a person really absorbs, when a Talmid, when a student really absorbs tefillah and the power of tefillah and hitbonenut from the tzaddik, so what it does to them. So I'm just going to read you the story because it's a powerful little story. Anash shehikiru et Rabbi Yisrael Leib miBafolya. The Hasidim, Breslov Hasidim, who personally knew Rabbi Yisrael Leib of Bafolya, who was a student of Reb Nosson. Haya mitalmidav hagdolim shel Moharan. He was one of Reb Nosson's great students. סיפרו שהיה מתפלל בכוחות בהתלהבות עד להפליא. He would invest an enormous amount of energy and fervor into his tefillot. וכשהיה מגיע לתיבות, when he got to the words, and this is in Psukei D'Zimra, ביום ההוא עבדו עשתונותיו. Now this is, ביום ההוא עבדו עשתונותיו is from Kuf Mem Vav, right? So that's also in the Halalukas, and it's 2 chapters before, right? Here, it's right at the beginning of the Halalukas. So it's Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah Nafshi et Hashem, Mahalala Hashem b'chayai, Azam Elokai be'odi. The very beginning of chapter 146 is first of all a statement that while I still have life in me, I'm going to praise Hashem. And Al tiftachu ben vivim, right? David HaMelech says, don't put a lot of faith in all kinds of people. B'ven adam she'eno tshuah. Don't put your trust into people who are just mortal human beings. There's no salvation to be found in people. You have to place your trust only in Hashem. Tetzei rucho. A person's spirit leaves him. Yashuv la'admato. He returns to the earth. That means to say he dies and gets buried. Bayom hahu, on that day, avdu eshtonotav. On that day, all of his plans and his thoughts and everything that he's got on his mind, it's finished. It's all gone. So at that moment that he would get in that first chapter of the Halalukas, Bayom hahu avdu eshtonotav, he would say it with such fire and such devotion. Psukei D'Zimra shebetfilot Shacharit, when he got to that point in Psukei D'Zimra, haya chozer alav harbei. He would go over the words again and again. Bayom hahu avdu eshtonotav. Bayom hahu avdu eshtonotav. He would go back again and again over the words. Anybody who was in a room with him, praying with him, people were gripped from hearing him immerse himself again and again in a consciousness of his own mortality and of everyone's mortality. So he would stay there in that phrase and repeat it again and again until everyone else in the tzibur were they were in a state of hizdazu, means they were shocked, and they were quaking from fear of the Yom Hadin of the Day of Judgment, because they were gripped with a very powerful sense of their own mortality. So I brought you this not because of the kavanah of Bayom hahu avdu eshtonotav, Not because of that, because that's just the pshat, but just as we have many such incidents and stories. I've heard many actually from Ziknei Anash, and about Ziknei Anash, about Breslov Chassidim from this previous generation, who like they would say a phrase, they would say a word, and they would stick on it again and again if it was something that was necessary for their avodah. They would just stay there and stay there, and you could feel from them. An old student of mine, she told me a story about Rav Lieberman, how he on Shabbos he would say Sab'enu mituvecha v'samach nafshi mishwatecha. He could go over that phrase like for 10 minutes. Sab'enu mituvecha v'samach nafshi mishwatecha. Right? Sab'enu mituvecha. Make us feel satisfied, Hashem. Satisfy us, satiate us with your goodness. V'samchenu samach nafshenu shvasecha, and cause our souls to rejoice with your salvation. He would go over it she said, like for 10 minutes in the tefillah. He would just go again and again until he felt like he had really awakened inside of himself, or it was just a tefillah, sab'enu mutvecha. Like everybody's always looking for satisfaction and delight from something, right? And here you have two words, Sab'enu mituvecha, satiate us with your goodness, Hashem. You could say that your whole life, not just the whole day, your whole life. So the Ziknei Anash that in Breslov, this idea of of chapping around, of taking advantage of the language of the tefillah as it comes to us, and just like not letting go necessarily until we really feel like we've pulled from it what we need. So actually, as we go on, we're going to learn more about this idea of like how to balance staying and staying with something and really like pulling out from it everything there is, and also having the pressure of having to move on to the next word. So Rabbi Nachman also discusses that. Let's go on. Here, this is a short lesson. It's a short statement that when I first came across it, it just did so much for me, and I always keep going back to it. Ikar Amirat Tehillim. Now, the reason why I bring it here, even though he's talking about saying Tehillim in general, but obviously Psukei de Zimra is a lot of Tehillim. So it's good etzah, it's good advice for also Psukei de Zimra. Ikar Amirat Tehillim, the main way to say Tehillim, because he's talking about how we approach it. We have to say every single word of the Tehillim for ourselves, and it's about ourselves. And so this particular lesson, it's a short lesson. Oh, I didn't mark it. I took it out of this is from Likutey Moharan, but I took it from Otzar Hayura. So not always do I remember exactly which lesson it's from. Hey, forgive me. Are you going to look it up now, or should I check later? That's a problem. It's Tesvav. Here, let's see. Sorry that I didn't mark it. See, this is Otzar Hayura. It's like in certain. This is an arrangement of Likutey Moharan and Likutey Alachot by subject, which is very useful sometimes when you want to put everything together. All right, I'm going to look for it another time because I don't want to take the time now. So let's see. It is from Likutey Moharan though. Ikar Amirat Tehillim Makom Mizmorei Tehillim Al Atzmo, that we say it mamash. Shoshana, but the. I can tell you where it is in the Likutey Moharan, because at the bottom it means that this lesson, pieces from this lesson continued in other paragraphs, so I don't have the bottom piece. I have to check where the citation is. Everybody can have Likutey Moharan, it's online. Okay, now, Ki Tehillim ne'emar b'shvil klal Yisrael b'shvil kol echad v'echad b'frat. Right? So, how are you supposed to find yourself? That's what I wanted to say. So, he uses this terminology. This is 200 years ago, right? Rabbi Nachman uses the term to find yourself in every single chapter of Tehillim. And it's a very modern language to use, right? To find yourself in every chapter and every word. Ki Tehillim ne'emar b'shvil klal Yisrael b'shvil kol echad v'echad b'frat, b'chol adam. Right, every single thing that David HaMelech and all the we have all the contributors to Tehillim, because we have not only David HaMelech there, so they certainly in their Ruach HaKodesh anticipated not only speaking about their own time in their own place, but also in, like with Ruach HaKodesh addresses everybody's time, everybody's place, both individually and collectively. So if I'll look carefully enough, I'm for sure going to find myself in every chapter. Right? Every person, every Jew. When David Melech is talking about his battles that he had to fight, we're also all fighting battles all the time. Everything that he went through, even if it seems removed from my experience, no, on some level, there's going to be something. It's going to be some point of resonance between his experience and my experience, because it's really about the soul experience and all that it goes through in this world, and everybody goes through everything in their own way, in their own time, and their own place. I mean, the bottom line, Tehillim is really all about, not only surviving, but winning the battles that we have to fight against the Yetzer and its legions. And so everything applies to us in some way or another. And here, and so he says, right? It all applies to me, there's no question. And even, and this is something very beautiful, I just wanted to tell you, even if it's not in Psukei de Zimra, he says, even when we find that David HaMelech praises himself, right? Even if it's not in Psukei de Zimra, it's fine. Meaning when we find, and people will say, well, how am I supposed to say that about myself? And the answer is, well, because you have points of perfection inside of you that are from Hashem. And of course you're a chassid, and of course you're a tzaddik, and of course you're worthy of Hashem's love and care and protection. Just like David HaMelech said, right? Exactly, that's the Nekudah Tova. So everyone has Nekudot Tovot inside of them that are certainly chassidim and tzaddikim and totally righteous and totally pure. So yes, you should say all of those chapters, even the ones where you say, how does this have to do with me? No, it's got to do with you. Okay, go on. To take advantage of the time as we have it, and maybe we'll even finish everything I put out. Okay, let's see. This I mentioned, I think, already, which is the idea of the Kaddish that's Bein Lebein, the Kaddish that's said from gate to gate, which is really the expression of longing and yearning, like the Zohar Kadosh says. So we will go ahead, and hopefully we can do the last little bit. Okay, now, this is now not from Likutey Moharan, if I remember correctly, this is from Likutey Alachot. It is through the songs and the praises that we offer before HaKadosh Baruch Hu during Psukei de Zimra. It's by virtue of those praises and songs, Magdilin Kvodo Yitbarach, we magnify the glory of God. And this is what draws upon us Nevuah, prophecy, and Ruach HaKodesh. Now, do you have prophecy? I don't have prophecy, right? I haven't got prophecy. But prayer is a kind of prophecy. Now you say, but I didn't make up these words. The answer is that's not what he's talking about. In order to be able to flow with prayer, and that your mind and your heart should be bound together with the words that come out of your mouth, that is a form of communion which is called prophecy on the level of the individual who's not a prophet. Prayer is for us the equivalent of prophecy. Now, you say, certainly I can see that more easily with his bodidus. When I'm praying my own words and when it flows properly, so then I really feel like a Kadosh Baruch Hu is giving me the words, right? So we see it better with his bodidus. But actually, if you think about it, you have days when you open the siddur and you're saying the words, and you're saying them and you understand them more or less connected, but when you really are davening, when you have a really good davening, and I'm talking about from the siddur, we all know that this is a kind of matana. It's like a gift that's like prophecy. When your mind and your heart and the words coming out of your mouth are somehow kind of like, it's like lahavdil, it's like magic, right? That everything is flowing and it feels exactly the way it should feel, and you feel close to Hashem, and this is called prophecy on the level of the individual who's not a prophet. So, Rabbi Nachman points out in his lesson that in general, when you're magdil kvodo yitbarach, like even for the prophets, let's go back to the prophets, they also did certain things to help them to magnify the glory of God, to put them into a state, a proper spiritual, emotional, mental state, also a physical state, that allowed their prophecy to flow. And they had a lot of different exercises and things that they had to do with music and with hitbonimut. They had all different kinds of things that they did in order to bring themselves into a state of experiencing and magnifying the glory of God, so they would be fit vessels for prophecy. Now, when we look at Psukei de Zimra, we can also see it as that kind of a mechanism. Remember, I gave the example of like hacking away, Azana b'shmachin, Psukei de Zimra, using these phrases, the expressions of praise. They are the means through which it's possible to eliminate obstacles from the path of prayer. So one of the ways, we have a new way of looking at it, which is really just an extension of what I had already said. Here, he says, well, that's because you're preparing yourself for the state of prophecy. And in order to do that, you have to put your focus outward on the glory and greatness of Hashem and start to express that. And it puts you in a state that's fit for prophecy. And it helps to clarify the faculty of the imagination. And the faculty of the imagination is necessary for prayer. It says in the Navi that I am imaginable, or I become known through the hands of the prophets. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says through the mouth of the Navi. And in terms of prayer, so the holy imagination is very necessary for prayer, because you have to be able to place yourself, you have to be able to mentally and emotionally place yourself before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you can't do that in any physical way. You have to activate the holy imagination to imagine yourself before Melech Malchei Melechim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, before the King of Kings, who is not a king that you can see, and you can't have a representation of anything in front of you in order to trigger your thoughts, and you can't have a statue, and you can't have a picture, and you can't have anything except what's in your holy imagination, which is not supposed to be physical. It has to be a sense of something, that you're in a place of awe, you're in a presence, and all of this depends on having a very mevorar imagination. It means to say your imagination has to be refined enough to be able to grasp such concepts and have them have an effect on you emotionally. So we all understand that the way of getting to be able to pray a clean, good Shmona Esrei, a focused Shmona Esrei, for that you need a really healthy, good, clean imagination. Not because you're picturing anything before you, quite the contrary. You're trying to conjure up within yourself a sense. I'm not sure where I lost you, but I don't know exactly where it cut off. So I hope that it didn't cut off way before. How far back? Okay, so not too far back. So we're trying to conjure up inside of ourselves a sense of something, and for that, you need inner resources or inner tools that awaken your heart, your mind, your emotions, and also allow you to focus on the greatness of God. So we can, even though it sounds like this lesson is very abstract, it's actually just very, very, very down to earth in terms of how our tefillot are organized. And we're going to finish this out. So when we say the tefillot, when we're saying Psukei de Zimra, so it's meant to get our minds in gear. Like I said, like imagine yourself at the top of the mountain calling out, Hallelujah, 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 praise Him, praise Him, praise Him. So all of these processes of Psukei de Zimra is preparatory, right? Just in terms of awakening in yourself a sense of the presence, which you can't get through any physical means. You have to work it from inside. And so Psukei de Zimra is a very good is the means, what's called, of conjuring up your nevuah, your capacity for being able to be in the presence of someone that's the unseen. That's why you need what he calls shalshulei, a chain of hallelujah after hallelujah, right? That you need all of these beautiful prakim of Tehillim. Ki kol ma shemahalin to yitbarach v'omim hallelujah, tiz b'atzmei chulina od hallelujah. You say one hallelujah, it leads you to the next hallelujah, meaning it brings you to a state of ever-increasing awareness of Hashem and His involvement, which is how you're going to be able to pray properly in the way of prophecy. Now again, it's not prophecy in the sense of telling the future. It's prophecy in the sense of your heart and your mind and your mouth all working together to produce something that is actually dvekut, which is the thing that binds you and is in a state of binding oneself to Hashem, which is not just saying words on a page, even if it's the same words that you say every day, and which every Jew all over the world is saying today, tomorrow, yesterday, and forever. It's still fresh and new because the prophetic aspect of it, which is your mind, your heart, and the words that come out of your mouth, the unique way that that's being expressed is your degree of prophecy, which is a gift. You can pray with the same siddur, and you can try to do it the same way day after day. And we all know some days it comes and some days it doesn't, but you have the same words available. No, it's a gift, like prophecy is a gift. So we do what we can to prepare ourselves best for this state. Rabbi Nachman says the best way to get there is through shvachim, is by offering praise after praise, chapter of Tehillim after chapter of Tehillim, which is the basis of Psukei Dezimra. So the Psukei Dezimra, they build one upon the other. This is a beautiful idea, and with this I'm going to end. So sometimes in Tehillim, no, afraid I don't have. There's no rules for it. You just do you do the best you can to focus your attention. Use the siddur as it's meant to be used, and do your best. There's no insurance plan. But the thing that he's going to say, which is where we're going to stop, is that it says in the Medrash that when we see sometimes in Tehillim it says Mizmor David, and sometimes it says Le David Mizmor, and the sages said about this, Shelefamim Shara Alav Ruach HaKodesh Achar Kach Omer Shira, Ulefamim Omer Shira Achar Kach Shara Alav Ruach HaKodesh. Mizmor Le David, or Le David Mizmor. What does that mean? Mizmor means he started singing, and then Le David, then prophecy would come to David, to him. That means first he would like stoke himself up to receive this prophecy via saying songs of praise to Hashem, and then sometimes we find it reversed. We find Le David Mizmor. First he would have the experience of Ruach HaKodesh, and then he would offer the song, right? So sometimes it went this way, sometimes that way. Why does it say it this way? So it says Ki ha b'ha talia, because it's contingent, meaning each part of it it's dependent one on the other. Sometimes he would just receive a spirit of inspiration and then his words would flow, and sometimes he would say the words and only afterwards would come the inspiration. That's why I said sometimes we don't have guarantees about it. Just think, Shoshana, it's like this. It says, Le David Mizmor. That means first Ruach HaKodesh, then he said the Mizmor. And if it says the other way around, Mizmor, it means first he started to sing, and then Ruach HaKodesh came to him. But what's being emphasized here in the Likutey Halachot, this isn't Kavod Rabbo, this is in the Likutey Halachot, Kavod Rabbo Halacha Gimel. That's the source in the Likutey Halachot. So what Nosson is emphasizing for us is that it's like this partnership process, like you just you say your Psukei Dezimra with as much with as much attention as you can muster, with as much feeling, and then hopefully by the time you get to the point of saying Shmona Esrei, hopefully you're going to be fully present and your prayers will flow as they're supposed to. Okay, have a beautiful week and also a good Chodesh. It's going to be Rosh Chodesh Bezrat Hashem by the time we'll already be in Kislev by the time we meet again, Bezrat Hashem. So have a beautiful week and a beautiful tefillot, and a good Chodesh. Okay? Bezrat Hashem.